You are all welcome to today's deep news analysis. This is not just news. This is where we break it down so you understand what is really going on in Nigeria. If you care about truth, justice, and the future of this country, then make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because what we are about to discuss today is serious. Stay with me, because this story is deeper than it looks. On November 20th, everything changed. Nnamdi Kanu was sentenced to life imprisonment. A decision that sent shockwaves across Nigeria. Not just because of who he is, but because of what he represents in today's political and security climate. For years, his name has been linked to agitation, controversy, strong speeches, and serious legal battles. To his supporters, he is a voice speaking for the Southeast. To his critics, he is a figure who challenged the authority of the Nigerian state. No matter which side people stand on, one thing is clear: this was not an ordinary case. When the court delivered the life sentence, reactions began immediately. Across different states, conversations started. In homes, in offices, on social media, and among political observers, one question kept coming up. Was this the final chapter, or the beginning of a new legal battle? A life imprisonment sentence is one of the heaviest punishments under Nigerian law. It means permanent removal from public life. It means a complete shutdown of political influence. It means the system has made a strong statement. After the judgment was delivered, he was transferred to Sokoto prison. That move also sparked discussion. Sokoto is far from the southeast region where he has the strongest support base. The transfer was seen by some as a security decision. Others viewed it as strategic. But regardless of interpretation, the relocation increased public attention. Legal experts began reviewing the case. Political analysts started weighing in. Civil groups began asking questions about due process. The focus shifted from emotions to procedure. People wanted to understand the legal foundation of the judgment. Was every step properly followed? Were constitutional rights respected throughout the proceedings? Were there procedural errors? These questions did not come from ordinary speculation. They came because this case has been ongoing for years. It has passed through different legal stages. There have been bail applications, appeals, extradition discussions, and multiple court appearances before the final sentencing on November 20th. The weight of the sentence made the scrutiny even stronger. In Nigeria, when a case carries political sensitivity, the judiciary is expected to be extra careful. The public expects transparency. The public expects clarity. The public expects that no shortcuts were taken. The sentencing did not end the legal process. In fact, it triggered the next phase. His legal team quickly moved to challenge the decision. An appeal was filed at the Court of Appeal. That step alone shows that the legal fight is far from over. An appeal means the defense believes there were errors in law, procedure, or judgment. It means the higher court will review what happened. It means the case is still alive within the legal system. At the same time, national conversations intensified. Some Nigerians argued that the judiciary had made its position clear and the law had taken its course. Others insisted that such a powerful sentence demands deeper review to ensure justice was done properly. The seriousness of the matter placed the judiciary under national focus. Every word of the judgment became important. Every legal argument became significant. Every procedural step became subject to public debate. This is why the events that followed became even more critical. Because in situations like this, institutions matter more than emotions. The credibility of the judicial system becomes the center of attention. And that is where the role of the National Judicial Council becomes important. The sentencing on November 20th was not just a legal decision. It became a national issue. It became a test of institutional strength. It became a moment that placed Nigeria's justice system under intense public observation. Now, with an appeal already filed and public questions growing louder, the involvement of the Nigeria Judicial Council signals that this case is entering another serious phase of review. And that changes everything. As the process moves forward, attention is now fixed on how both the legal system and oversight bodies will handle this situation. Nigerians are watching closely, not just for the outcome, but for the integrity of the process itself. The appeal at the Court of Appeal will test the strength of the original judgment, while the involvement of the National Judicial Council raises deeper questions about accountability within the judiciary. At this point, the case is no longer just about Nnamdi Kanu. It has become a national legal moment that could shape public confidence in justice moving forward. The intervention of the National Judicial Council has introduced a new dimension that cannot be ignored. This is not a routine administrative step. It is a formal move that signals concern at the highest level of judicial oversight in Nigeria. When such a body sets up a panel to review a judgment, it reflects the seriousness of the issues being raised around that decision. At the center of this review is the conduct and ruling of Justice James Omotosho. The focus is not just on the outcome of the case, but on how that outcome was reached. That distinction is important. In law, the process is just as important as the judgment itself. The panel is expected to examine whether the trial followed established legal procedures. This includes how evidence was handled, how arguments were considered, and whether the rights of the defendant were fully respected throughout the proceedings. These are not small matters. They form the foundation of justice. Legal observers understand that once due process is questioned, the entire judgment becomes subject to deeper scrutiny. It is not enough for a decision to appear strong. It must also be clean, consistent, and fully aligned with the law. This development has shifted public discussion away from emotions and into institutional accountability. The conversation is no longer only about guilt or innocence. It is now about whether the system performed its duty without error. Across Nigeria, reactions have continued to grow. Lawyers, analysts, and public commentators are paying close attention to the implications of this panel. Many see it as a necessary step to protect the credibility of the judiciary. Others see it as an indication that something may have gone wrong during the trial. The involvement of the National Judicial Council also places pressure on the judicial system to demonstrate transparency. In high-profile cases, silence can create doubt. Clear action, however, can help restore confidence. At the same time, the appeal filed by Nnamdi Kanu at the Court of Appeal is moving forward. This creates a parallel legal path that could influence the final outcome of the case. The appeal process will examine legal arguments presented by the defense. It will look at whether the trial court applied the law correctly. It will also determine if any errors were significant enough to affect the judgment. Now, with both the panel review and the appeal happening, the case has entered a more complex stage. Two different mechanisms within the legal system are now active at the same time. One is reviewing conduct. The other is reviewing the decision itself. This dual process increases the importance of accuracy and fairness. Any findings from the panel could influence public perception. Any ruling from the appellate court could directly impact the legal status of the sentence. It is also important to understand that the role of the National Judicial Council is not to overturn judgments. Its role is to ensure that judicial officers act within the law and maintain professional standards. However, its findings can carry serious consequences. If errors or misconduct are identified, it could lead to disciplinary action. It could also raise questions about the validity of the judgment itself, even if indirectly. This is why the current situation is being closely monitored. The judiciary is not only delivering justice, it is also being examined in real time. The presence of institutional oversight alongside active legal appeal creates a moment of high tension within the system. It reflects both the strength and the vulnerability of judicial processes. Strength, because there are mechanisms for review. Vulnerability, because those mechanisms are now being tested publicly. For many Nigerians, this is about more than one case. It is about whether the system can correct itself when necessary. It is about whether accountability exists at every level. It is about whether justice is consistent, regardless of the individuals involved. As proceedings continue, the expectation is clear. The panel must conduct its review without bias. The appellate court must evaluate the case strictly based on law. Every step must be documented, and every decision must be justified. This is the standard that the public expects. This is the standard that defines trust in the judiciary. At this stage, there is no final outcome yet. The panel has been set up. The appeal is ongoing. The legal system is in motion. What happens next will depend on facts, law, and institutional responsibility. And until those processes are completed, the case remains open, active, and highly significant within Nigeria's legal and public space. All eyes remain on the institutions involved as this process unfolds. The decisions taken in the coming days will carry weight beyond this single case. They will reflect how the system responds under pressure, and whether accountability is truly enforced. For now, the nation waits, observing each reminder of the National Judicial Council role. What this situation now represents goes far beyond a single legal battle. It has developed into a national test of institutional strength, public trust, and the credibility of the justice system in Nigeria. At this stage, the focus is no longer limited to the case itself. Attention has shifted to what the outcome of these ongoing processes will mean for the country as a whole. The actions of both the courts and oversight bodies are now being measured against public expectations. For many Nigerians, this is about confidence in the system. When a case reaches this level of attention, people begin to ask deeper questions. They want to know whether justice is consistent. They want to know whether the law is applied equally. They want to know whether institutions can stand firm under pressure. The appeal filed by Nnamdi Kanu at the Court of Appeal remains a central part of this moment. The appellate court now carries the responsibility of reviewing the legal foundation of the life sentence. This is not a simple review. It requires careful examination of arguments, procedures, and the application of the law. If the appellate court finds that the law was properly applied, the sentence may stand. If it identifies significant legal errors, the outcome could change. That is the power of the appeal process. It exists to correct possible mistakes and ensure that justice is properly delivered. At the same time, the involvement of the National Judicial Council continues to shape public perception. Its role reinforces the idea that no part of the judicial system is beyond review. This is an important principle in any legal system that seeks to maintain credibility. However, this moment also carries risk. When public attention is this intense, every action taken by institutions is closely examined. Any delay, lack of clarity, or perceived inconsistency can create doubt. That is why transparency has become essential in this process. The Nigerian public is not only waiting for decisions. They are observing how those decisions are reached. Process matters. Communication matters. Institutional behavior matters. These elements shape how justice is understood beyond the courtroom. This case also highlights the balance that must exist within the legal system. On one side, the judiciary must remain independent and free from external influence. On the other side, it must remain accountable to the law and to professional standards. Maintaining that balance is not always easy, especially in high-profile cases. The current situation places that balance under real pressure. It tests whether institutions can operate based on principle rather than perception. It tests whether decisions can remain grounded in law despite public debate and political sensitivity. Another important factor is the long-term effect of whatever outcome emerges. Decisions made in cases like this do not exist in isolation. They set examples. They influence future cases. They shape how citizens interact with the legal system. If the processes are handled with clarity and fairness, public trust can be strengthened. If doubts remain unresolved, it can deepen skepticism. That is why this moment carries long-term significance. There is also a broader national context to consider. Nigeria is a country with diverse views, strong opinions, and active public engagement. Legal decisions that touch on sensitive issues often generate strong reactions. This is not unusual, but it increases the responsibility on institutions to act carefully and responsibly. In this case, the combination of a life sentence, an active appeal, and an oversight panel has created a unique situation. It is rare to see all these elements active at the same time. That alone makes this a defining moment within the legal landscape. As events continue to unfold, one thing remains clear. The outcome will not only affect Nnamdi Kanu. It will influence how Nigerians view justice, accountability, and the rule of law. The coming decisions will answer key questions. Can the system correct itself when necessary? Can it maintain fairness under pressure? Can it deliver justice in a way that is both lawful and credible? These are the questions that now define this moment. Until final decisions are reached, the situation remains open. The appeal is still active. The review process is ongoing. Institutions are under observation. And across the country, Nigerians continue to watch, reflect, and wait for a conclusion that will not only resolve a case, but also speak to the strength of the nation's justice system. Moments like this, history quietly takes notes. Every ruling, every review, and every official statement becomes part of a larger record that will be remembered long after the headlines fade. The responsibility on the judiciary is heavy because its decisions do not only settle disputes, they define standards. If the appeal process at the Court of Appeal confirms the life sentence, it will reinforce the authority of the trial court. If it overturns or adjusts the ruling, it will demonstrate that correction within the system is possible. At the same time, the review by the National Judicial Council will signal how seriously judicial accountability is treated in Nigeria. Whatever the final outcome may be, this moment stands as a clear reminder that justice is not only about verdicts, but about the strength, integrity, and transparency of the institutions that deliver them.